right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're here to talk about Hoyoverse. Of course, we're here to talk about Hoyoverse again. And this time, it's going to be about the strategy that they've been taking across their monetization, that they've been taking across all of the different games in their portfolio, how they're optimizing them across their audience, and the issues that are actually going to plague them down the road. A lot of people think that Hoyoverse has some sort of master plan for how they're approaching all of their games, but it turns out that this master plan might be one of the worst in gacha gaming history, despite how well the company might appear to be doing at the moment. So with that, I just want to go ahead, give this video a look by Fleur, however you pronounce it, and we'll see how he's going to break it down.
Investing in victory means playing the long game. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Wait a minute.
No, that's Topaz, brother, man. If Hoyoverse did something, that means that they're always the first to do something. That's why everyone just says Weewa is just a copy of pure fiction, because everybody knows Hoyoverse is the only original company in gacha gaming. Again, they're always the pioneer, no matter what the feature is. Breath of the Wild inspiration? Fuck that. Genshin was actually the first. Nintendo took a time machine, they went into the future, and then they saw Genshin Impact being made, and then they decided to make Breath of the Wild instead. So again, you guys got to get your facts straight first.
Didn't Topaz say that?
1, 2.
Alright, what's the #1 goal of any game company? Depending on who you ask, the answer may be different. A developer might say it's to create the best game they can, while on the other hand, a consumer might say that the company just wants to make as much money as possible, depending on how they feel about the game itself. If you're one of the 2 people left on the planet that still think any of these companies have goodwill, maybe you'd say it's a mix of both.
So there's a combination between goodwill, and then there's a company that's just trying to actually nickel and dime you in every single way possible. In a lot of ways, right? You can view some of the things that companies like Kuro Games do as predatory, right? It's 50-50 on the character banner. But you can also see that a lot of these predatory things are being offset by other benefits, right? A 100% guarantee on the weapon, Echo loadouts, sorry, not artifacts, Echo loadouts being given out like less than a year into the game's launch. And then you have other companies like Hoyoverse being predatory at a baseline and then just getting worse every single year. Key example is exploration quality of life being locked behind limited characters. You're gonna have a horrible time in their newest region unless you decide to pull every new addition to the roster. A bit of an issue there.
Gacha games though, they're different because they actually have 3 goals, all of which are connected and all of which are of equal importance. Let's go in order here and talk about step 1. The first goal of a gacha game is to get you in the door. There's a variety of ways they can go about doing this, especially in the current post-Genshin gacha landscape. Some might try to just go at the basics and offer a really compelling story. Some might try to sell you unique gameplay or cool animations, and some might try to get your attention with lore. Others might go a different route and shower you with early game rewards, and this is what Hoyoverse does. When you look at any of the 3 current major Hoyo titles, the new player experience for them is amazing. No matter where you look, you're getting rewards thrown at you left and right from both the mail, the content offered, and different incentives to get you to keep playing.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really true when it comes to the new player experience is definitely Honkai Star Rail and ZZZ. When you're in a situation with those games where quitting an older account and starting and re-rolling a new one is actually better for a lot of people. For example, Honkai Star Rail, better to just re-roll a new account and pull on the newest banner characters than actually go on with your veteran account because of how bad the power creep has gotten. Same with ZZZ. It would have been better to re-roll in 1.4 and just get a copy of Miyabi and her weapon instead of, you know, just going ahead and going with the existing value of your account. ZZZ just did it super early. Hopefully they don't do it again because boy, oh boy, it's a worrying thing for your title and it's a worrying thing for your veteran player base if the characters releasing are so goddamn powerful and just so game warping in the damage that they're able to do or the utility that they provide to teams that quitting your account and ensuring you get the newest characters makes your account stronger. It's the same as in Honkai Impact 3. Yeah. So they have a history of doing it. And shockingly enough, Genshin Impact is actually the best game when it comes to managing power creep. It is actually the best fucking game.
In Genshin, you have tons of regions to explore, hundreds of quests to do, thousands of achievements to collect, endgame to tackle, events to get caught up in, and so much more. While Honkai Star Rail is newer and technically has less overall content, it takes that early game generosity further by offering incentives for doing the content, for example by giving rewards to players like the guaranteed 5-star unit on the beginner warp and bonus rolls at specific account level thresholds. On top of that,
I don't remember this shit. I swear to God, this wasn't in the game on release. Was this in the game on release? Oh, I guess it was, because it's the Sela Aptitude Showcase. Holy shit, it's been a while. Man, they really sweetened the deal for players. I didn't even remember this being in the game. Holy shit.
Specific account level thresholds. On top of that, old events are permanently available for you to complete at any time, and you can get most of the rewards from them. Zenless Zone Zero is even newer than Star Rail is, yet it still has multiple story chapters to clear, both easy and hard content to do, an absolutely massive amount of events, plus the same quality of life that HSR brought with the beginner banner and permanent events. In all three of these titles, there's hundreds upon hundreds of roles available, all right at your fingertips, just waiting for you to collect. You can get multiple of the highest rarity units from the free currency offered by these games. That is, assuming you're willing to put in the time to play through all of it, or, you know, you could just get your account managers to do it for you.
Now that one was a critical hit. That was a critical hit.
That's not even mentioning that both HSR and Genshin had selectors within the last year to pick a standard banner unit from. So all that seems pretty generous, right? Why is the company's goal to just get you in the door, or in other words, what's the reason behind all the generosity? Well, if you remember, I said they actually have 3 goals that are all connected, and the why is the second goal that Hoyoverse has. Once you're in the door, what comes next? Well, it's getting you to stay. Like, imagine you're a newish player in a Hoyo game. You've gone through the story and the exploration content available. You've taken all the generous gifts that Hoyo gives you as you...
It's like the same thing with drug dealers, guys. The first one's always free. The first one is always free. They give you a little bit of a sample. They get you hooked. And then next thing you know, you're waking up on Saturday afternoon on a tattered couch you don't know, with thousands of Whippet bottles surrounding you, and no hope left in your life, and no hope left in your eyes. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I do think it's an accurate framing for some people, unfortunately.
Hoyo gives you as you've been building out your account, and you're finally ready to take on the more difficult
give me
content
that
the game
Hoyo
has to
hit.
offer. This is where you'd probably start looking at endgame and then seeing how you can clear it. Do you think you understand the game well enough to attempt it? Do you have the characters you think you need?
That whole missing slot in the team is so bad. It's just so bad.
Are they built well enough, and if so, how much of it can you get through? Well, once you have the answers to all that and just, start trying, you'll undoubtedly be able to clear some of it. That is, until you hit the wall. This is the wall that you'll reach at some point in every gacha you play, but especially so in Hoyoverse games. Your units won't be leveled high enough, or you didn't invest enough in your gear, or maybe you got the wrong characters and don't have what you need to make any progress. This is where the third goal that Hoyoverse has comes into play. By this point in your account's progress, you've most likely already invested enough time to clear the main content, and you've also probably started thinking about how to clear the more difficult stuff, so you've actually already fallen right into Hoyo's hands. See, their third goal is actually very simple, is to create a wall in the game or a threshold that you can't cross at the current moment in time, and then it's to figure out how to get you across that threshold. Or in short, yacht.
Is this the whole parasocial part? I feel like he's about to get into the parasocial attachments to the characters. The ones that get you doing things like the Scaramouche Kitty incident, where somebody actually either they caught a cat and then murdered a cat because it looked too much like a Genshin Impact character that they did not like. I think he's getting into that part.
The idea behind Gya is that Hoyo wants to get you to a point where you're willing to spend something. Like, if you can't clear the content that you want to clear, there's basically 3 roads in front of you. The first path is pretty simple. It takes you down the line where you stop playing the game, because after all, if you can't clear any content, then why would you bother? And obviously, Hoyo wants to avoid you taking that path at all costs.
They're doing a pretty shit job at it, if I'm being honest. I do think if their goal is to keep you playing the game despite the barriers, they are doing a pretty shit job at it by constantly raising the barriers every single patch for the past 6 months. Maybe past year, if we're being entirely honest. Yeah, the number of people that have quit due to power creep has to be absolutely insane if the developers themselves are going in and saying that they're actually doing too much. much. But then they proceeded to make it worse with the 3.1 MOC. Yeah, that's a little bit of a stinky situation here, if we're being entirely honest.
So, Hoyo adds incentives for players to actually want to clear the content, and they do it by offering a chunk of the rewards you get per patch for participating in it. For example, in the current 5.4 Genshin patch, a free-to-play player can get around 60 rolls for doing every single bit of content in the patch.
60.
Of those 60 rolls, 15 of them come from full clearing both of the endgames that are available. If 25% of your rolls come from clearing content, then you know that players have a very, very large incentive to actually attempt to do it.
I love when all of those people, they're always like, oh, well, if you can't clear the end game, or you only do, you're only gonna miss this many. It's only like 100 pulls a year, so don't feel pressured into pulling this newest character. You're only gonna lose like 100 pulls over the whole calendar year. It's not even one guarantee. It's not even one guarantee. Guys, don't worry about it. It's such a weak dick argument, like such a horrifying argument that players make whenever there's like power creep, or whenever there's something that's just absolutely ridiculous that's been added to the end game that requires a specific character to beat. Oh, just don't worry about losing 100 pulls a year, guys. You don't feel pressured to pull this character. It's not really that important. So stupid. When their roster that they went into like the unbeatable content with was clearing content months ago. When you get to the point where what you were using gets so old or so outgraded that you can't use it anymore and you have to pull something new, people will bend over backwards with just the most garbage reasoning to explain why that's actually okay. And it's just ridiculous.
The thing to note with these endgame content rotations is that they follow a strict schedule. What this means is that in every patch there's essentially an allocated amount of pulls set for the story, events, and other stuff like that, whereas you'll always get roughly the same amount of pull currency from endgame content, assuming you can clear it. This means that the actual amount of pulls that you're intended to get in the 5.4 patch is 45 and not 60, which makes those extra 15 all the more important. After all, 45 pulls is just a little bit over half of what you need to hit soft pity on a 5-star. Very sneaky, Hoyo. So all that brings us to path 2, which is spending your time. If you can't clear now, well, just log in every day and do your dailies, spend your resin, do all the events, upgrade your gear, and do everything else that comes with these kinds of games. If you commit your life to the game, you'll certainly be able to clear in the future. Hoyo demands a significant amount of effort from you to get all the rewards that they dangle in front of you. The worst thing is that it feels like you barely have enough time to complete everything. In Genshin, events are too short. For example, the Lantern Rite celebrations only lasted for 2 weeks, and in ZZZ we get so many events that it can honestly kind of get a little overwhelming.
I feel like this is the one thing about ZZZ that I find kind of just a bit off, is how long you actually have to play the game to fully clear everything. I might be in like a boat of players that maybe just isn't like ZZZ's target audience, but when I see how much you actually have to do, especially for like their limited time events, it kind of just turns me off. Even if it is like an enjoyable experience, the idea that like the limited time event actually takes like 7 hours to do over the course of the patch on top of like the story commitment is a little bit insane. You have to do the story first to access the event, and then the story by itself, right, is like a couple of hours, and then the event is like 7 hours. It's a little nuts. It is a little nuts. And I do think that players shouldn't need to actually play the game this much and have so many things that they need to do on a daily basis. I think the one thing that I probably dislike the most out of ZZZ's events is like the arcade. The idea that you need to add the arcade into like your daily login cycle. You have to like create time to do the arcade event. Otherwise, like you won't be able to complete it. Like you won't be able to complete it because there's like a set number of rewards that you get every single day from it. And so it's just like they add on so many of these little things that you have to put into your playtime. Sure, the dailies themselves don't necessarily take that long, but just all the extra stuff that they add on top of it through the events is kind of like a bit of a turnoff, 100%.
I guess there's never a lot going on in HSR, but that's a whole different issue. Honestly, there's usually enough stuff going on that it feels like Hoyo would do anything to keep us from cheating on them with other games, except for actually treating their players well. And this brings us to path 3, where it gets even more insidious, because this is the route where you spend money. If you don't have enough gear or characters leveled to clear right now, well, there's this funny little button you can press to refresh your daily stamina and farm more. Don't have the right units to be able to clear, like maybe you're missing a support for your DPS or vice versa? Well, Hoyo's going to make absolutely sure that the wish button will be on your screen at all points during gameplay, and they'll also ensure that the shop button is available every single time you open the wish screen.
I feel like the fact that you're accidentally able to open up the summon menu when you're in the endgame mode is actually one of the funniest things ever. I do genuinely believe it is one of the funniest things ever that you're allowed to pull on banners when you're in the middle of an abyss clear. Isn't that just who's going to do that? And who's actually done that? Do they have like data and the statistics of somebody getting like cleaned out in the fucking abyss? And so they just start like rage pulling on the banner? There has to be data that they've seen of individuals doing that, and that's why they still have the button there. My Chlorind was a rage pull when I was molding in abyss. Hey, I guess it's working. I guess it's working. Hey, maybe they're right. Maybe Wuwa needs to add that too.
You know, just in case, right? So you've gone down path 2 or 3 and now you're in. You've fallen for their trap and you're across the threshold of no return. You've invested your time or your money, so you should get something out of it, right? Well, unfortunately, you got hooked, line and sinker, and now you're in it for the long haul. You just don't realize it yet. At this point, all of your free resources are gone and dried up, apart from what they ever so generously give you each patch. But you can be damn sure that they'll make it seem like you're getting a whole lot more.
And that's the problem for all the veteran players, right? And that's like the whole issue with the whole Solali Mavawika banner.
One tactic the companies use to not only get players in the door, but also to increase potential earnings is by going hard on marketing. Sensor Tower reported that between quarter 2 of 2023 and quarter 1 of 2024, which coincidentally was the first year of Honkai Star's release, Hoyoverse invested nearly $300 million into digital marketing for their games, which was over a 487% jump compared to their previous year where they spent less than $100 million advertising Genshin and their previous titles. They advertise their games everywhere. They're on media sites like YouTube, Twitch, Bilibili, and so on. Like, if you're watching gaming related videos without an ad blocker, you can't go more than a few videos without seeing an ad for at least one of their games.
Hoyoverse is one of the biggest contributors to my YouTube revenue. I will in fact confirm that. The number of comments that I receive about people like talking about, ooh, it's super ironic that I got a Honkai Star Rail, that I got a Honkai Star Rail ad on this bad boy, or that I got like a Genshin Impact or ZZZ ad for this video. The number of comments that I've received regarding that is kind of insane. So yeah, they go everywhere. They actually just go everywhere. They do everything.
I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the Natasha ad video at least once while browsing around, right?
I'm Natasha, an underworld
God. Oh God, stop it.
There's also sponsored videos, streams, and events where they go out of their way to show new people the game and try to encourage them to play it themselves. Like ZZZ sponsored EVO, and even more crazy, HSR sponsored the broadcast of the Olympics on NBC. But it's not just digital marketing, because they also do a lot of events to try and build their community. For example, they host events like Hoyoverse, and they do annual streams for both regular patches as well as bigger events that are themed after the new region for patch cycle changes with their major games.
They'll do everything except reinvest money into their games. They'll do everything for the game except actually invest money back into its development. That's kind of what this video is saying. They'll do all of this shit when it comes to marketing. They'll spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars to get people playing the game, but they will not spend anything to actually make the game good. The fact that Amphorius is going in and it has quite literally the worst NPC models that the genre has seen in like years. It literally looks worse than some PS2 games. Honestly, PS1 games too. The fact that those models actually just look worse, despite all the money that they're making, all the advertising they're doing, the fact they did this live action, they had to hire people, guys. They had to hire people to do this. This shit was not cheap to do, a fucking live action Roman Greco fucking recreation. This was not cheap to fucking do. And when the patch arrived and it was this fucking bad and this fucking lazy, you're just at the point where you're like, wow, He'll do anything except fix the game, or except make the game good.
Themed after the new region for patch cycle changes with their major games. On top of all of that, they do concerts, collabs, pop-up events. They're extremely active on various social media sites like Twitter and the like, and they show up at major events like Anime Expo, Anime NYC, Gamescom, the Game Awards, the Tokyo Game Show, and a ton of others. Outside of IRL marketing, another point that's very important to note here is that Hoyo markets the characters they release as content for their respective games. There's a reason that almost every time a new character is released, the ads for the game get updated to reflect that. They want you to always be seeing the new stuff because if it gets you excited to log in, then that's a +1 on their player retention count. Even if you're someone that stopped playing at some point, all it may take is one super hot character and then you're right back into their clutches again. FOMO comes into pretty big play here as well. Remember that every time a character's on banner and pullable, they're only there for a limited time. When they're gone, until whenever Hoyo decides it's time to pull them out of the basement again. This can result in a wait for a character being upwards of close to 2 years.
Ryodsley, Genshin Impact Cryo DPS, released in version 4.1. Version 4.1, guys, was November 2023. He released in version 4.1, and he hasn't had his rerun until this patch, this Genshin Impact patch. On March 2025, released in November 2023, his first rerun ever isn't until March 2025. That's almost 1.5 years. 1.5 years for a rerun. How? Why? What is going on? He's the warden of a jail. He basically was in jail.
At you, Shenhe. Besides feeling like you've missed out, it basically means that you won't have a whole lot to do if you don't end up getting any characters in the patch you're playing, especially if there's no explorable content to hold you over. And all this does is further incentivize players to go for things that they might not necessarily want. This all allows Hoyo to actually take a pretty lazy approach to the actual content they release for their game, because if the character is the content, then what incentive does Hoyo have to actually create anything aside from that?
Well, they can make content that sells the character. And this is kind of like one of my deep issues with ZZZ. I'm gonna be honest, this is the part that I find the worst about ZZZ. It's how ZZZ has a filler patch every other patch. They don't progress the main story 2 patches in a row. They had the main patch in 1.1 or 1.0 with the story. 1.1 is a filler patch, essentially, where they just sell Jane Doe and Qingyi. Then they have 1.2, actual story patch. And then in 1.2, right, it's like that's the Sons of Caledon patch, where they actually progress the main story. And then in 1.3, they go back to filler. They're trying to sell Lighter and Yanagi. And then 1.4, actual main story patch. And then 1.5, they're back to filler selling Astra and Evelyn. And to me, it's just so much of the content in the game is literally entirely 1000% focused on just selling the characters and not actually telling the story. And the thing is, I find that the worst part because I think ZZZ has actually a very good main story. It's a very, very good main story that's dragged down because it doesn't ever fucking go anywhere. It takes so long for the story to go anywhere because every other patch is filler. And it makes the game, honestly, like kind of frustrating to follow if you're somebody that enjoys the story. Because you know it's like, if you found the story patch good, it's gonna be like 90 more days. It's gonna be 90 more days until you can experience another bit of the main story. It's really, really, really unfortunate. And you know that's the only reason why they're doing it is to just sell the characters. Entirely just to sell the characters. Isn't that Wuwa 2 main and then filler? No. No, it's not. Because Wuwa already has a history of going from 1.1 or 1.0 to 1.1. And that was just all main story. There was no filler in that one.
I mean, hell, I know firsthand a few people that log into ZZZ on a daily basis just to walk around as their favorite character in that game. And
I bet
Hoyo knows this. They heavily market their characters through different trailers and teasers, which just promotes the idea that you can get invested in the characters themselves rather than whatever content and story you have available to actually play with them. While there might not always be something exciting going on in the game, they'll always make it seem like there's something to get invested into surrounding the game. If it's not the current character, it's the next. If it's not one game, it's another. And this is all part of their trap. They want you to always be thinking about their games because once you're in,
you're here forever.
It turns out that might not actually be true. It turns out that might not actually be true, guys, because the number of people that are quitting or about to quit Honkai Star Rail is going to be absolutely absurd. Once Castor Ice's global passive is officially published and out there for everybody, the number of people quitting is going to be a little crazy. at least in my opinion.
So now you're in for the long haul. What next? Well, to explain, let me walk you through a scenario from my own life. It might seem unrelated, but just trust me. All the way back in 2014 when I built my first gaming computer, my friend and I decided to go with a Corsair power supply for it, and I've even still got the email of that. That power supply did end up having issues when I first got it, but not only did Corsair give me a replacement, they also gave me an upgrade to the 850i from the 750 that I previously had.
This is a scam. He should have just asked for the 750. This is how power supplies work, guys. You don't want to get a power supply that's too big or that has too much wattage for your computer, because you're just going to end up using more energy on a power supply that you don't need. Think about it this way. 750 is already a fuck ton. Why would you need more? You're just going to spend more money on electricity for power you don't actually need for your computer. So this is actually a bait.
Believe it or not, that upgraded power supply is still going strong in my current computer over 11 years later.
Okay, that is kind of crazy. Maybe they sent him literally the best one they had. Maybe they sent him the best one they had. If it's lasting 11 fucking years, that's okay. That's probably the best Corsair advertisement I think any of us have ever seen.
So you might be wondering why I'm talking about old computers and power supplies. Well, it's because as a result of this scenario, I now recommend Corsair equipment as a whole to friends, to family, and others who I built PCs for in the past. As a result of the good interaction I had with Corsair customer support and the power supply that has lasted me over 11 years, I have some trust in their parts and some faith that their company will do right by me as a consumer.
On the flip side, I bought some Corsair RGB fans. And they fucking shit themselves. No, it was a Corsair AIO cooler, and that shit itself within like a month. And so now I never buy it. So it works both ways. It does actually work both ways.
Whenever I buy PC parts now, I'm always on the lookout for Corsair parts first, because I developed a sense of loyalty over time towards their products before any others. How this relates to Hoyo is that every single thing Hoyo does is under the motive of them creating that same sense of loyalty. They want us as the players to think positively of them, and they do this through everything discussed so far. Being generous early on into our playthroughs, giving out freebies like standard banner characters, and the rare example of Dr. Ratio that HSR got.
I feel like I might be one of the few people, maybe there's more people like me. I feel like Dr. Ratio being free actually kind of aged badly. I feel like the free Dr. Ratio actually aged kind of bad because the character kind of just sucks ass. In the present state of the game, he's fucking awful. And they just released a better version of him. They straight up just released a better version of him called Fei Zhao in less than 6 months. She's just better in every single way. And it's to the degree where you have to ask yourself why you would ever use him when Fei Zhao is in the game. And that level of just like blatant power creep in the same exact role, main DPS that synergizes with follow-up attacks, is just like, it's kind of weird. I don't think a lot of people in HSR can look back on Dr. Ratio being free and like really use it as a flex anymore. Meanwhile, Zhang Liao is still a top DPS. Absolutely, right? Zhang Liao is still one of the best characters in the game. He's competitive with everybody. He actually uplifts other underperforming members of the roster. For example, like Zhang Liao was a big reason for people to play their Changli. Without Zhang Liao, I guarantee there would not be as many people actually using their Changli. People getting him for free and then being able to pair it up with Changli and dual DPS was like one of Changli's #1 use cases as a character, because she really did not have good teams prior to him. Really, like they didn't feel very good at all to play.
Examples of them trying to get you invested in them. And that's not even mentioning the asinine amount of marketing that they do so their products are always on your mind. The more positively you feel about them, the more likely you are to get interested whenever they do different things like events or launch new games like HSR and ZZZ. What this does is it brings you into their ecosystem. Just like how I use and recommend Corsair computer parts, someone that likes Hoyo games will be just as likely to do the same with Hoyo products. For example, a lot of people tried HSR simply because it was a Hoyoverse game. While Hoyo undoubtedly spent an absolute ton of money on marketing on top of building that loyalty from their older games like Genshin, there's no denying that a good chunk of the success the game had is from people that already wanted more from Hoyo. Something to keep in mind here though is that in comparison to my scenario with Corsair, the Hoyoverse ecosystem isn't all roses because you have to look at the context surrounding it. Like, Corsair gaining a loyal customer by having good customer support isn't something particularly insidious. They just wanted me to think of them first when I bought computer parts going forward.
What I feel like this guy is doing is across this entire video, it feels like he's laying a very like elaborate trap for the viewer. He's going in and he's describing all of the various tactics that Hoyoverse is doing to like drive brand appeal, to gain customer loyalty, to like have that word of mouth marketing done for them. And then I feel like he's just gonna like rug pull every single viewer in just a couple of minutes about how what they're doing is accomplishing the exact fucking opposite. I just feel like that's happening because it is getting to the point, like he's making all of these arguments for like how the brand loyalty works, but at the end of the day, right, people are just getting fucking mad. They're furious at Hoyoverse for how they've been just fucking literally everything up. And he hasn't even talked about the issues yet. He actually has not even talked about the issues yet. I have to see where this is going.
On the other hand, Hoyo's goal isn't just to get you in the door, it's to keep you gambling and spending more and more and more every single time you play one of their games. Like, for example, if you buy merch of your favorite Genshin character at an event, is it a good product? Sure, the quality is probably really nice, and you wouldn't have gotten it if you didn't want it, right? But it only serves the purpose of getting you more invested into whatever character you bought that merch of, and therefore Hoyo as a whole. Whenever you see that merch at home, you'll always be reminded of where it comes from. So what happens the next time that character's on rate up in your favorite gacha game? Seeing that merch every single day would probably incentivize you to roll for more copies, or maybe you'll get their weapon if you don't already have it. After all, they're your favorite, right? Maybe you're not a merch person and you're just a hardcore gacha gamer, always on the lookout for the new hot game.
Or you're playing HSR and you know that you need her. You need her! Otherwise, your account's bricked.
Hardcore
You need Tribby!
gacha gamer, always on the lookout for the new hot game. If you're already playing Genshin and Hoyo releases the new hot game Honkai Star Rail, you're probably gonna start playing that one too. Now, you're not only in the Genshin space, but the Star Rail one as well. There's more chances to find characters you like, more stories to get invested in, new generous content to play since the game has just started, and most importantly for Hoyo, more chances for you as the consumer to pull out your wallet and swipe just a little bit to get you started.
It gets better before it gets worse. Oh boy. Oh boy. What is this supposed to mean?
So now we're at the part where I get to tell you why this is all a problem. You know,
I fucking knew it. I knew this was going to happen.
apart from the obvious point of saying it's a gacha, of course it's a problem. You might have read the title of this part of the video and been a little bit confused because the traditional way that saying goes is actually the opposite. With Hoyo games though, it's just not like that. See, something Hoyo's been doing for years now is always making it seem like the next thing is going to be better than what we have now, even when that isn't always the case. I mean, that's all the marketing that we've been talking about. To be at least a little bit fair here, they do actually have patches in their games where it seems like things are good. But something worth noting here is that those good things come with a cost. First, we can take a look at a specific example from one of their games, and the easiest one to bring up is Genshin. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the pull tracker for Genshin, but there's two patterns in there related to specific times of the year. Did you notice it? If you didn't, it's the specific patches that offer a lot of rewards, with the following patches having a big drop-off, and here's the points where that happens. Don't recognize anything special about those patches? Well, those are both the Chinese New Year patches as well as the anniversary patches. Both of these are meant to be a time where you get to celebrate, right? Like another year has passed and the game is still going strong. So us as players deserve to be showered with rewards and have a great time. To be fair to Hoyo, it generally is a great time. We get a lot of rewards as big events going on IRL and a ton of other things. But then the end of the patch happens. Now, going into the next patch, what are we greeted with? A hell of a lot less rewards. Seems weird, right? Well, not really if you think about it in terms of balancing.
You're just taking a loan on the polls from the next patch. That's kind of just what they're doing. There's always a catch. There's always a string attached. And that's what you have to keep in mind whenever it comes to anything Hoyoverse does. If you can view a new addition to the game or a new feature that Hoyo's done, and you view it positively, just understand that you are going to get fucked somehow by it. You're gonna get fucked somehow by it. Key example, the artifact selector. The custom artifact selector that was released in version 2.0. The artifact selector that took so long and had the tendency to roll like dog shit, that was so bad and so critiqued by the player base that a quality of life buff, the artifact selector, had to be buffed with another quality of life buff. That is where it goes. And I think now it's finally at the spot. We still have to see what the integration is going to look like. I do think that their artifact selector is finally at a good spot. It just only took, you know, more than half a year to get there. More than half a year to get there after its original implementation. And I think that's a little crazy.
Hoyo's goal isn't actually to reward us at these times of the year, it's just to make it seem like they are. If we get anything extra, they'll be sure to withhold that from the next patch's rewards to keep the average the same. If we get 100 pulls on an anniversary patch and only 50 the next, then the average amount of pulls between the two patches is actually only 75.
Yep.
Doesn't seem too generous now, don't you think? Looking past just the rewards, we can look at the other things like quality of life and also the recently announced potential buffs for characters in HSR.
Oh god. Oh god. Yeah, we're buffing all the old characters, but the only way those old characters can get the buffs is if you pull the new characters. Wouldn't Blade be pretty good if he was actually unkillable? If he actually couldn't die, you know what I mean? Hey, I know just the way to make that happen. Just pull Castor Ricey. Just pull Castor Ricey, buddy. Once you get her, Blade will actually, that paradise will actually be unreachable for him.
These are things that Hoyo can do at any time, but they hold it above our heads like a cookie jar while saying, no, not until I say you can have it. Even on the rare occasions that we do get those things, there's always something at play that makes it not as simple as it seems. Like for the buffing system in HSR, don't get me wrong, I can't help but be at least a little bit excited by the prospect of being able to use my old characters again. As per usual with Hoyo though, this all comes with a caveat of context. Every character released in that game is almost always guaranteed to be stronger than the last one is.
True.
So for example, if their character Blade gets buffed whenever they implement this system, it's only a matter of time before he becomes a dumpster.
Don't do him like that. Why are we doing him like this? Why is he getting dribbled and crossed over like this? What did he do to deserve this treatment in the editing, in the post-processing? Come on, man.
Tier character again as stronger and stronger characters are released after him, unless they actually implement.
All right. I've been holding in my piss for about 5 minutes. Cannot believe he did him like that. Hey, what's up, Fleur? Hey, awesome video, dog. Awesome fucking video, man. We're getting to the good part. We're getting to the good part, but I'm a little bit upset that you did my man like this. He's my man too. Why are you putting him in the bin then? If he's your man too, why are you putting him in the fucking bin like this?
They actually implement the system properly, this quality feature really isn't all that impressive. For more general quality of life stuff, it can take years to implement, and even if we do get it, it's always done with a Hoyoverse twist. I mean, how long have we been asking for gear loadouts in Hoyo games, only to get these awful auto-equip systems instead?
These devs at Hoyoverse will do literally anything to not add what the players want. They spend so much development time, so much R&D on just like bullshit that nobody actually uses or wanted in the game. I am genuinely curious as to like who is using this. People have tested this feature out and it just puts dog shit equipment on your characters. It's just worse than just manually selecting their gear. Always, it makes the character worse every time you use the button. And it's just, all it is just like a bait. All it is a bait for players that don't know better. Literally.
Systems instead. How long have we been asking to farm stuff like talent books and weapon materials in Genshin only for them to put out a survey asking us if that's something that we really want? Hell, even Wuthering Waves added loadouts recently. Talk about Genshin could never.
Hey, you're looking a little bit like a Kuro bot, buddy. Oh, he's just a Kuro bot. Hey, stop comparing the games, amigo. Oh, what are you talking about? Genshin doesn't need artifact loadouts anymore. Because Wuthering Waves added Echo loadouts, Genshin actually does not need them anymore. And if the devs do add it, it's not because of Wuthering Waves. It's because the devs were planning it the entire time. There is always going to be some excuse made by the Hoyo show player base that's just going to downplay every single thing or whitewash everything that the Hoyo devs do every single time. It's just fucking ridiculous.
They're tactics that Hoyo pulls across all of their games, from big events and anniversaries to quality of life, but it doesn't stop there, because they also do this when they release new games. Remember, they've built an ecosystem that we're all trapped in. So what this means is that not only do we get screwed by the things previously mentioned, we also get screwed whenever they want to launch their next title. And you could see this when both HSR and ZZZ released. HSR released on April 26th of 2023. What was going on in Genshin at the time, you might ask? Version 3.6, where they were running rerun banners. While reruns are nice, it's pretty undeniable to say that they don't sell super well, nor do they make the vast majority of the community super excited to log in and play.
You'd be surprised at how well every Archon banner does because they're intentionally designed to to be fucking broken. All the Archon banners are intentionally designed to be fucking broken. And one thing that I am just so happy about Wuthering Waves when it comes to like the design and the balance of their characters is that, yes, Jinxie is like the Archon of Jinzhou. She is a strong character, but it turns out that Carlotta actually will out DPS her in single target, a non-Archon character. Jinxie is strong, but she's not like the fucking elevation, right? She's not like the top tier dog in every single game mode. She sucks ass in Whimpering Wastes. She has weaknesses. There are reasons to pull and use characters that aren't her, and they're not like dumb fucking reasons, right? Like Genshin has. Genshin has dumb fucking reasons for you to use other characters. And that's like enemies having like goddamn elemental shields that just make like, okay, like there's an enemy with a hydro shield and you have a cryo DPS. Go fuck yourself, right? It's literally like, go fuck yourself, because they intentionally design enemies to be a complete pain in the ass or just like feel insurmountable unless you just have the right element and a DPS of the right element. That's like how they get you to horizontally like spread out your investments and pull more characters. While in Wuwa, the reason why you have to pull characters is a little bit of elemental coverage, but mainly it's so that you just have a different way of playing the game. You do a similar amount of damage. The damage is just done in a wildly different way. And that difference in play style, that different level of like satisfaction is what brings people, right, to spread out their roster and invest in more DPSs. The DPS characters in Wuwa are actually, in my opinion, like the most valuable ones. A lot of people go in with the whole mindset from prior gacha games, right, that the best investments are going to be a support and like the sub DPS characters. In Wuwa, it's honestly the support characters and then the main DPSs. And then the sub DPSs, in my honest opinion, are the lowest priority. SK is huge, without a doubt. Right? SK is huge. But I would say it's DPS characters that take priority after SK. Not actually the sub DPS characters. You don't need a Jeja. You don't need a Yinlin. You definitely don't need a fucking Rosia. But the thing is, it's like, that's how they've balanced their game, and it just feels so much better.
Apart from those reruns, we did actually have a small region release to explore, but not only was its entire purpose to put a bow on the Sumeru Desert exploration, but it was also the third desert region released in a row, resulting in not that many people being actually super excited for it. In other words, it was basically a major filler patch where people were looking for something else to do.
I'm gonna be honest, Genshin's 3.0 updates and like them releasing so many expansions focused on the desert was actually low-key them just telling you not to play the game. The desert just looks bad. It just looks boring. It just looks like uninspired. And they had so much of it in Sumeru. It was just like, I'm pretty sure players were like complaining about how big the rainforest was, but they would have preferred more rainforests over 3 fucking desert expansions. And don't even get me started on the desert underground. Oh my god. I still don't have the underground completed in Sumeru because it is just such a unappealing thing to explore. It's a fucking maze and it's It's like they were looking for any reason for you not to actually complete the region. Super unplayable puzzles, stuff that's just like hard to track. It's like a combination of everything that would turn you off from an adventure game is in Sumeru. 1,000,000%.
So what did Hoyoverse ever so generously offer for players to do instead? Play their new game, of course, Honkai Star Rail, a new and exciting space fantasy RPG where everything is new and fresh and exciting, rather than just stick to the same old desert that we've been exploring for the past 6 months. This then repeated in Honkai Star Rail when Hoyoverse's next game launched, Zenless Zone Zero.
Oh yeah.
ZZZ released on July 4th of 2024.
Was this the monkey patch? No, this was before the monkey patch. This might have been the filler patch in Janzhou Lofu.
What was going on in HSR at the time? The end of 2.3, where there was absolutely nothing to do after you pulled Firefly and did a tiny bit of story.
Never mind. This was even before the Janzhou Lofu. Yeah, this was, 2.3. 2.3 pissed a lot of people off now that I think about it. I feel like 2.3 actually did piss a lot of people off because they were just like, what was actually the point of Penacony? That was the patch that I think cemented Penacony as one of the worst regions in gacha gaming. After resolving 2.3, you kind of just thought, did anything even matter? Did anything that we just go through even matter at all? And I think the answer was just like, no. Somebody said it was a shit post. 2.3 made all of Penacony just feel like a gigantic shit post. Oh, those buttons? Oh, those bombs that Sparkle put everywhere? They don't mean anything. Firefly dying 3 times? Oh, it didn't mean anything. Sparkle was just playing a prank. Okay.
I remember that patch vividly because for 4 weeks straight after finishing that story, the only thing I had to do in that game was log in, spend my daily stamina, and then Alt F4 the game.
No, what you're supposed to do was spend 10 hours grinding for Harmony Trailblazers Eidolons because you had to do so much fucking extraneous bullshit that was just fucking boring and like mind-numbingly bad in Penacony, talking to NPCs, rewiring their goddamn fucking gears, doing all this dumb shit that you don't want to do just to make the character playable in the endgame content. I am still E4 on, yeah, I'm E4 on HMC too. I think when people saw that you had to do like 10 hours of like optional content, that's just fucking boring, let's be real here. To get the last 2 Eidolons for HMC, I feel like people just didn't get them. That's actually why I quit the game. I quit the game actually in version 2.3. 1,000,000% I quit the game in 2.3 because I saw what I had to do to make my Firefly usable, and I was just like, I think I'm good. I think I respect my personal time too much to do all of this stupid shit just to make the limited character I just pulled playable.
It says something when that patch had 5 events total, 2 of which were freebie rewards, and 2 of which were simply events where you got double the amount of resources for spending your stamina. So since there was absolutely nothing going on in HSR, what could you do? Once again, Hoyo ever so generously swooped in and launched their new game, Zenless Zone Zero. Everything that Hoyoverse does has a cost. While it may seem like things are getting better, it usually ends up worse soon after. And that's the cost that we as the players of their games feel. Whether it's for rewards, simple quality of life features, or game releases, they always try to screw us in some way. And it's for one reason. Hoyoverse doesn't see us as anything more than a walking wallet.
Absolutely.
Alright, congrats.
wallet
You either
sandwich.
made it this far in the video, or you just skipped directly to the section, so welcome in if you did that.
Why do you sound different? Fleur, are you still here? Did you get a second person to record, or did your balls drop? Or did your fucking balls drop, like, between this recording and the prior one? I just woke up when I recorded that. Oh, so yeah, I kind of like that. Ooh, yeah, your voice sounds like a lot deeper when you wake up in the morning. Yeah, I know that feel. Your voice tends to be the deepest in the morning, and then it gets much higher throughout the day. Fleur did not magically reach puberty in between these recordings. It's just it's a biological thing.
Alright, congrats. You've either made it this far in the video, or you just skipped directly to the section, so welcome in if you did that. Apologies if I get a bit heated in this section, but this is something important to me, and
deep
also
voice
something
plus
that I'm just
mad.
passionate
Ooh,
about.
he is rising.
Over the years, it's become obvious that Hoyo is only interested in their long con. Their goal isn't to create a good experience, it's just to make it feel like what we're getting is actually worth something. They go out of their way to get as many people as possible to play their games, and then structure the first few patches of them to secure us as loyal customers. After that point, they just want to keep us in a revolving door throughout their variety of games. If you don't have anything to do in one game, you can be sure the others will have stuff going on to spend your time and, more importantly, your money in. I mean, who needs real content when the next limited character can be shoved down their throat every other week across all their games? Like, everything I've talked about in this video is evidence that showcases Hoyo doesn't really give a shit about us, they're just interested in whatever they can get out of our pockets for the lowest possible amount of effort from them. And what that means is that whatever we get from them is basically just the leftover scraps off their dinner table.
Key point, Amphorius. Amphorius literally looks worse than Penacony in almost every single way. How do these devs do this? How do the devs just make so much money across all of the 2.0 version, and then they proceed to just actively make the game worse for 3.0. I feel like Genshin at the very least has felt like it's had like a solid level of improvement from at least like 2.0 to 2.3, and then 3.0 to 4.0, and then they just drop the fucking ball in Natlan completely, make the game worse, and then at the same time, while making Genshin worse in Natlan, they proceed to make HSR worse in Amphorius. I feel like there's something like, there's just a dynamic that's going on within Hoyoverse where they are actually doing things that they haven't done before. It's just odd to me that both games are going on a negative trajectory at the same time. You could say the reason is that it's intentional, it's to push ZZZ, but they're doing all of this while ZZZ is on a filler patch in version 1.5. And so Natlan's bad, ZZZ's on a filler patch, so it's kind of bad, and then Amphorius is just dog shit as a whole. And so all three of the games are just not in a good spot, when you would imagine that they'd sandbag one or two titles to push one up. But that's not what's happening either. It's so strange.
Hoyo knows that we're willing to overlook things like the missing quality of life, the lack of real content, and the insane amount of time it takes to fix any problems the games have if they stuff us full of rewards early on and try to essentially love bomb us whenever we get upset.
I thought this was Mount Firmament at first, and I was like, finally, he's gonna get to a good game. But nope, it was just the fucking dog shit home of, I don't even remember what this region is called. It's like in Mondstadt. It's like the snow. Winter's Peak, Winter Spine, Dragon Spine, yes.
By the time the excitement of a new game release wears off and all we've got is the leftover garbage, they can get away with doing the bare minimum, but by that point, their hope is that we're in way too deep to notice. Unfortunately for Hoyo, their con is very noticeable at this point. The small bits of quality of life and the generosity that they try to feed us just doesn't cut it anymore. The revolving door is getting old at this point. The lack of quality of life is getting old at this point. Our characters standing in a circle for 90% of the story in their games is getting old at this point. The complete and utter disregard for the community's wants and needs is especially getting old. And that's not even mentioning their blatant and prominent greed that is showcased across all of their games except for ZZZ for now.
They kind of already did it with Miyabi. I'm going to be honest, if you're somebody that's kind of like at the point where you're not recognizing that the power creep that Miyabi did to the game was a net negative, I do think you are a shill. If you are defending Miyabi's implementation into the game, I do 1,000,000% believe you are a shill. In 1.0, ZZZ released with an ice DPS character. And then not even 4 fucking patches later, they release another ice DPS character that is just better than her in every single fucking way. Literally just better than her. And people always use this idea of, well, Ellen can still clear the content, so it's not really power creep. It's not really power creep, guys. Ellen can still clear. She can do deadly ass ult. She can do the tower. She can do all of this. That's not the point. The point is that they actively added something to the game that players know is going to make original day one players that pulled Ellen feel bad. It feels bad when another character gets released in less than half of a fucking year that's exactly basically your character, but just better in every way. Who cares if Ellen is still able to clear if there is Ellen Supermax that's just better than her? And they cost exactly the fucking same. You're just gonna feel like your original purchase, your original investment was a fucking stupid idea. You feel dumb. And players just shouldn't like or accept that. And the fact that the game, ZZZ, was willing to introduce that drastic of power creep in such a short amount of time is absolutely fucking absurd. It's completely absurd. And there are elements that didn't even have DPS characters yet. And they could have just done that instead, or just made her play entirely differently. But no, she's literally just Ellen, easier to use, has like triple the fucking iframes, and does more damage.
I specify for now because the fun times that these games have are only temporary. It's a matter of time before their next game launches, and by that point, it'll be ZZZ on the chopping block. It is just such a shame.
I'm glad he recognizes that. I am so scared that ZZZ is going to go down the exact same road. I am so scared it's the exact same thing that we're saying is bad for all of these other games is just going to happen to ZZZ. I have no faith. I'm going to be honest, I kind of just have no faith at all. And it's really sad
that this company is using this awful business model and these terrible practices to make things worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Because if you look past the bullshit that Hoyo pulls to try to keep us invested in their games, there's actually some good stuff underneath. But it just doesn't matter when you have to look past the hundreds of problems that these games have just to see it. Like, I love these games. I have logged into Genshin every single day since that game launched. I did the same for HSR and ZZZ too. I've been a loyal player because for a long time, it felt worth it to me. But I just can't feel that way anymore with the current state of their games.
So this guy is actually, Fleur is a 100% Hoyo shill. He's a Hoyo shill by every single definition of the word. And guys, HSR 3.0 made me re-download Woowa. And now Woowa is gonna break your Genshin login streak. Sorry, buddy. Hey, get grinded for Peeb. Get grinded for Peeb, brother man.
Honestly, they never really did enough to deserve our loyalty to begin with, which is why it's so important that we both recognize and speak up about these terrible practices that Hoyo follows. If we don't advocate for these games and this company to be better, then all we'll have is whatever bait Hoyo dangles in front of us to keep us here. If we stay in their revolving door, it won't matter when players quit one of their games because they'll have the next piece of bait ready. From Genshin to HSR, from HSR to ZZZ, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me a third time, and I'll make an entire YouTube channel to complain about your company.
That's such a based ending, it's ridiculous. Well, that was an awesome vid, man. I think we will have to give your video some shots in the future. Everybody, I highly recommend you give Fleur, or however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce his name, Fleur to you, whatever it means, right? Give him a like, give him a sub. We should be supporting content like this at every single opportunity. I'm even dropping it in my chat right now. And yeah, I gotta say, absolute banger video. You hit on so many points. I would say the only thing that's missing, the only thing that I think is slightly missing from your argument is the recognition of how much money they're spending on marketing and how little they're spending on the game. And the example that I would have used for that is 1000% Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact, where in Genshin Impact, right, you have all of these characters who still have the same exact animations. They can't sub out the body types or like add customizations to models to just make the characters look better. And in Honkai Star Rail, right, the unacceptably low quality of the assets in Amphorius is ridiculous. And it just shows that there's so little budget being allocated to the, you know, the design of both of those games, and it's all just being allocated to marketing instead, when the company is already making a criminal amount of cash, and it should be going back into the game, but it isn't. That's the main thing that I would point out, just as like where I would expand a little bit in here to make it way stronger. But overall, I mean, it's still a complete fucking banger video. Let me know what you all think. I think this was amazing. Peace out.